Good afternoon, everyone, and here's a trade recap for today. In the small account mastery, we did a 0 days expiration iron condor. Now, if you watched the Plan of Attack, you know I talked about doing a call credit spread or a put credit spread. And as the more I was thinking about it after I've already posted the video, it was, the IV could be increasing into Jerome talking, and that when JP was talking, it wasn't new economic data coming out. It was simply just him going for a talk. And if you listen to it, you probably laugh. It was just him being questioned about his salary, if he felt it was fair, or if he goes out to eat with people, do people try to get information for him, and basically asked also, is there does he basically is the government, and he didn't word it like this, but basically asked if the market was rigged by the government, and asking him if like information is getting out before he puts it out, things like that. So anyways, all that being said, we all know when JP talks, IV gets inflated, and then I was looking for the IV to contract, therefore taking advantage of the IV contraction if the market goes nowhere. And that's kind of like I was saying, and I'll talk about why the setup, why I felt that was the right call, and I'll point it all out here in a moment. But before I go into that, I do want to talk about the position. You can see that here is the entry. You see two exits because I ended up scaling out, and I'll talk about it here in a minute. But as the price rallied, closed the put side, and now as the price fell back down, closed it for 70 cents. So ultimately, you can see I got in the position for 480, closed it for a dollar debit, and then so that means I got a total of $3.80 credit, which is roughly about 80% of the credit received. Cool. So I made about roughly 80%. Sorry for my really bad handwriting. Handwriting with the mouse is harder than it looks. But you can see that we sold the 4060s and sold the 4140s. And I'll talk about why those strikes here in a moment. And it was about 15 wide. So for one position, this was roughly risking 1K to make a max profit of 480. So it's roughly about 48% return on your position. And these were delta 20, so you have an 80% chance alone. That's supposed to be 80% chance of it playing out just on delta 20s alone. Now I'll talk about it some more as far as why I did what I did and things like that. Because I do have screenshots for you and explanations for it all. All right, so let's dive into this. Actually, for time of entry, let me pull this up. I'll just bring up the screenshot. Okay, so this is what the SPX looked like at time of entry. And so, like the alert I sent out to the small cap mastery, to open, we're going to do 0 days expiration iron condors on SPX, and we're holding through the speech. So, you have position size for max loss. And so this is why I chose the strike. So I was leaning to the downside, just like it says right here. I mean, I don't really have to read it all to you, but we did the Delta 20 iron condors, looking for price to go sideways to down to JP. He's talking in the IV crush afterwards. And so we skewed it to the downside because the ES had 30 and 60-minute squeezes that are going negative. And you see here, we sold outside H1, where it closes above that roughly 50% of the time. And I want you to remember this upper line right here because it's important. That's right where we stopped, where you see we only close above it roughly, we'll call it 13% of the time. And I skewed it further down because, like I said, the squeezes are going negative, looking for price. I was kind of expecting this. Ultimately, that obviously didn't happen. It went yeah, and then yeah. But it all played out in the end, and we'll talk about it. But yes, this was the setup here. I sold outside here because it closes above H1 or inside H1 50% of the time, and I already have the squeezes going negative, so I'm looking for price to go down. And I'll also show why I'm expecting price to go down. And then I also did my short strike on the put side, slightly outside L1, all the way down here near L2 on the quant pivots. So that was this view, and then here's the other view. So I'm sure y'all are aware I've been using market profile a lot more these days. Price was below the weekly VWAP I'll change the color so you can probably see a little better. I don't know if that's any better. Too many colors. All right. Here's the point of control, the weekly point of control. Prices below it. Squeezes are going negative. All right. And so I was thinking, okay, if we're below this point of control, the weekly point of control, at the time we're below or we're oscillating near the daily point of control. And so if we're below the larger time frame point of control, squeeze is going negative, I wanted to skew it to have more downside. So that's the setup. So we did a Delta 20 Iron Condor, and it was also something to talk about yet was so it was a Delta 20 Iron Condor. The expected move was also 37 points. So this lined up perfectly outside the expected move. And it was also Delta 20s. So roughly, like I said, you have an 80% chance being probable just based off the deltas. It was outside the expected move. So the expected move was priced in. That price will stay in there. And so everything was lined up. I had my reasons for support and resistance. And that was the reason for entry. Now what happened? So that's enough of why we got in. But I wanted you to understand why I got in. And I have some important notes to talk about at the end of this. Okay, so what happened? All right, so this is what happened after JP talks. So JP starts talking. We go rally all the way up to H2. And at this level is where we close the put side, held onto the call side. And then when the market flushed, started to move lower, as the price came down into the daily 8 EMA, I closed the call side for 70 cents. So boom, now we're out of the position, just like it says here and I talked about earlier. Locked it up for a dollar debit after getting the 480 of credit. So we locked in basically on one position, he made 380 bucks. All right, cool. But there's some key points about this setup that should be talked about versus what actually happened. And the thing I want to talk about is if the market, say the market did blast through this and keep going, right? And then that means my call side would be a loss, which it would be, right? Because this is my short strike right here. It's all the way in the money. So how do I, like, why was I comfortable on holding? Like even someone said, a member in there was like, you're a god, or you have diamond hands. And it's really not. The reason I was okay with holding it is because I accepted the risk. Going into this trade, especially when you're going into something crazy, when someone in FOMC is talking and stuff like that, you position size for max loss. I already know the worst that could happen to me. And so I was okay with holding. And I think that's very important, that every trader should know what's the worst that could happen to them when they're initiating their trade. That's once you pick that level that's comfortable to you, you could hold through anything because you know the worst that could happen to you. And in this case, it just so happened to work out. I had my reasons for picking my levels, and it all worked out. So like I said, rallied up, scaled out, flushed down to about right here, just like it shows right here, the daily 8 EMA, which is that yellow line. That's where we closed the other half. But yeah, that's pretty much it. I alerted this all out to the small account master people, and we did it together. But yeah, that's it. But I hope everyone has an awesome day. We'll see what unfolds again tomorrow. Keep your eye out for that plan of attack. And be disciplined, and let me know what y'all think of these videos, these recaps. I've noticed the views aren't too big on the recaps. Just curious if there's any drive for them or I should stop doing them, so on and so forth. But nonetheless, have an awesome day, everybody, and I'll see you again tomorrow. Take care.